Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
This is Mr. Chris Claremont, a legend.
Melanie goes,
Tired.
Happy Tuesday, all you Minties! This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me for my overview of all of these books coming out from Marvel Comics this week. So let's go ahead and get started. Before getting started, a big thank you to David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us advance copies of these books. Each and every one of these books is due out in the direct market and book market on October 15th or 16th, depending on where you get your books. We got a masterwork. We got a new modern epic collection. We've got some miniseries. We've got one of the greatest ongoing series collected in trade paperback format. And, of course, I always leave timestamps in the description of the video. And I always give my seal of approval to one book every week. Whoa! This one was hard because there's a lot of good stories in these collected editions. But again, don't forget to smash that like button before you go any further. I always like to remind people just in case. And thank you all so much for sharing our videos and for just being wonderful, wonderful people. All right, let's go ahead and start. Oh man, let's do Edge of Spider-Verse first. Edge of Spider-Verse, Spider Society is how we are kicking this off. And this is the new Spider-Verse story. This isn't one that was collected in the Omnibus. This is a follow-up to the other Edge of Spider-Verse miniseries. And this one focusing as a build-up to the next Spider-Verse storyline, which is the Spider Society. Collecting Edge of Spider-Verse 1 through 4, 120 pages, retailing for $17.99. And it is broken down into 4 issues, but each issue, as you can see, is an anthology. Some of them have 2 different stories, and some of them have 3 different stories, told by different creators like Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing, and Carrie Andrews, and Carla Pacheco, Alex Segura, Steve Fox, just to name a few of the creators behind this book. We do have like Salvador La Roca doing some of the artwork as well. And each one will tell you who is the spider person in it. For example, this is Weapon 8 in New Toys. Spider Bite gets to make a return. Spider-Man 2099 in the prologue. And Araña makes a return. Madam Web makes a return because we are talking about the web of life and death, right? And why is she gathering forces to form this Spider Society? But that's what this really is. So I assume, I haven't read Spider Society yet, that these characters, well, some of them will show up in the Spider Society. But this is Weapon 8, and that's right. It is a Peter Parker that was part of the Weapon X project, and they're going back to Grant Morrison's retcon of like Weapon 1, Weapon 2, Weapon 3, instead of Weapon X being a letter, Weapon X stood for 10. I was never a fan of that retcon. There's Weapon 1, Captain America, see what I mean? Yeah, I love Grant Morrison's writing, but some of the stuff they did, ugh. Anyway, not here to judge that book, but here we have the introduction of that character. We have the return of Spider Bite, who showed up in the actual movies. And then we have Spider-Man 2099. This is the one that's drawn by Salvador La Roca. And I love Miguel, and I love the fact that he gets to play a part in this, but Madam Web is recruiting him for the Spider Society, for something big that is about to happen. And right before she does, he gets taken away by what looks to be the Sinister Six. And this is continued in Web of Spider-Man. So when that's collected, we'll get to see what that's about. This is the Spider Goth Kid by Carrie Andrews. So you get the idea of what this is. A collection, an anthology of just different Earths and the Spider-Man that are part of that Earth and how different they are. You'll see reoccurring characters. You'll see returning characters from the previous Edge of Spider-Verse miniseries, but mainly this is to build up the next event, and I'm not sure if that's like a big crossover or if it's just going to be a miniseries. This is the Spider-Woman of that particular Earth. I love the Spider-Rex. I think he's one of my favorite characters. It's so stupid, and I'm sure people roll their eyes when they see a T-Rex Spider-Man. But yeah, I can't get enough of him. 6 pages? I think this is all 6. No, it's only 4 pages. Just wasn't enough. 4 pages wasn't enough. But yes, you'll see the build-up for the team and then where it's going. And of course, it continues into Spider Society. In the back is where you're going to see a lot of variant covers. Some of them in thumbnail size, some of them in splash page size. And then there's the other Edge of Spider-Verse and the first one. These are not collected, by the way, in the omnibus. 120 pages, $17.99. And that is Edge of Spider-Verse Spider Society. Predator, The Last Hunt. But is it really The Last Hunt? I certainly hope not, because I've been enjoying these miniseries that lead into each other. This is the Marvel Comics Predator miniseries. This is Predator from 2024, collecting the 4-issue miniseries, but it's a continuation of the previous Predator story. So this is where it kicked off with Day of Thunder, with that gorgeous Arthur Adams cover, and then Predator, the Preserve right here. So those are the first 2 volumes, even though they don't say volume 1, 2, and 3, but just keep that in mind. So I'm glad that they advertised those in here so you know where to go. Here to give you a timeline, including Predator 1 movie timeline and Predator 2 movie timeline. Very nice. I love that. Ed Brisson has been writing the miniseries. Francisco Mana is the artist, and color is Eric Arciniega. And then issue 3 is penciled by Francisco Mana, but this time around, Jonas Trindade is the inker. And you have the lettering here by Clayton Cowles. So collecting the 4-issue miniseries, it's 112 pages and retails for $15.99. So we are back to the character of Theta Berwick, who has sworn vengeance on the predators that have killed, or one predator that has killed her mom and dad. And this time around, we are introduced to a super predator, which makes sense, right? I think even in the Dark Horse era, we did have like the super predator storyline. But this time around, it is aware of Theta and the fact that Theta has become the predator and killing people. But some years have passed. It's been years since she started hunting the predators when she was a teenager. Now she is in her 40s, which is just crazy to think about. In the span of just 3 miniseries, she goes from a teenager to a 40-year-old, which, you know, that's just the way that timelines work. She's not alone because she's still with Paolo, and she has rescued humans before. This time around, she is summoned to a planet where she hasn't seen a predator for a long time, but there are people in sleeping chambers here. So she finds out that she can open up the sleeping chambers, and somebody has already killed one of the predators down there, and it wasn't her or Paolo. So she's trying to figure out if there's some new predator out there killing predators, because she doesn't want anyone to take that away from her. Yes, she does have that prosthetic arm this time. She's a complete badass. Now, one of the coolest things, at least I thought it was cool, is that we get to meet this guy in a Hawaiian shirt. So he was one of the people that woke up, that was in one of the cryogenic sleeping chambers. This is the character of John Schaefer. Now, if you're a Predator movie fan, you're like, Schaefer, wait a minute, that's Dutch's last name. That's right, this is Dutch's brother. Dark Horse did the same thing already. They had introduced him. He was a police officer. I assume Dark Horse did it because they couldn't get the rights to the looks for Arnold Schwarzenegger, so they were like, we'll just make a brother and you know, make him part of the concrete jungle. And that plot kind of became what Predator 2 was before the movie was even out. But he's one of the people that wakes up from this chambers. Now it's up to him and a bunch of the other people that survive from different timelines, I'm not going to go into detail as to how that's happened, to fight against the super predator. And man, it gets bloody. This one, by the way, I have to mention, is parental advisory, and that's mainly due to the language and the violence. I happen to really enjoy this story. I love the character of Theta. I hope they make another one, and let me know in the comments if you already heard that they're doing another series, because I want to see it come to a conclusion. I want to see, because I don't want to spoil what happened in the last volume. I want people to genuinely enjoy these. So if you're a fan of the movies, this is a really fun story following a particular character that has sworn a vengeance to kill the predator that murdered her family. And that has lasted for decades. So she becomes the Predator. Now she's wearing Predator outfits. And I'll let you find out how this miniseries ends and where they can go from there. And in the back, you do have variant covers. Again, the book has 112 pages and retails for $15.99. And that is Predator: The Last Hunt. What If Venom. These new What If series are so different than the original What If series, and I'll explain why here in a second. This one has 136 pages and collects the 5-issue miniseries What If Venom, and it retails for $17.99. Jeremy Holt's the writer, and then you have different artists like Jesus Hervas and Taram Gyadu and Manuel Garcia and Diogenes Neves. Now, each one is attached to a particular character. So it's What If Venom had bonded to She-Hulk, had bonded to Wolverine, Doctor Strange, Loki, and Moon Knight. That's cool, right? At least I think it's cool. I'm like, okay, well, we've seen the symbiote before just bond with different characters in the Marvel Universe, but let's have some fun with this one. This is different because it's a continuing story. All 5 issues are one story that leads into the next story. Even though the symbiote is merging, or bonding rather, with different characters throughout the Marvel Universe, it starts off with the story of Eddie Brock at Our Lady of Saints Church, trying to commit suicide. And if you're not familiar with that story, it is all found in the Venom collections and the Epic collections, and it gets brought up often. This time around, though, Jennifer Walters is working late, so she's our She-Hulk, and she ends up walking by Our Lady of Saints Church where she hears something, and she stops Eddie from pulling the trigger. In the original story, of course, the symbiote, because of Eddie's hatred for Peter Parker, and because of the symbiote's hatred for Spider-Man, bonded, and they became Venom. This time around, since she saved him, the symbiote takes her and bonds with her. So she becomes She-Venom. Now she is visited by Stephen Grant. No, I think she's actually visited by Jake Lockley. So you'll see the character of Moon Knight's different personas appear through the different series. So how it happens is Sabretooth is hired to go and capture the symbiote and take it back for study. And the symbiote is still attached to She-Hulk. It leaves her for a while, but then it goes over and gets bonded to Wolverine. So one story leads into another. So the second issue is how the symbiote ends up getting bonded to the character of Wolverine, and it becomes this particular Venom again. And they're all drawn by different people. Doctor Strange has an encounter with the Enchantress. That leads into Asgard, and that leads into Loki, and then how Moon Knight plays a role in all of this. Different than, like I said, the original series that was What If, where they were all standalone issues. They were all, it would have been just what if the symbiote had bonded with She-Hulk and ended at the end. Here, it's just a miniseries where one thing leads into another. And Moon Knight, rather Khonshu, plays a huge part in this. So collecting the 5-issue miniseries, in the back, there are some variant covers, and then some in between issues. 136 pages, retailing for $17.99, and that is What If Venom. I love that cover, by the way. Fantastic Four by Ryan North, Volume 4. Fortune Favors the Fantastic. If you are waiting for this series to be collected in an oversized format, like an OHC, which I don't think it will be, or an omnibus when it's all said and done, first of all, I'm really jealous that you can have that patience and wait. I probably would have too. But since I'm doing overviews of these books, I read the first one and I decided that this going forward was going to be at the top of my stack every single time. I have a seal of approval every week. I've already given this a seal of approval. I'm going to tell you, end of the year, I always do my top 10 reads. Volumes 1 and 2 were my favorite reads of the year this year. They're making it in the top 10. They were amazing. They were fantastic, rather. That was cheesy. Sorry, last dad joke. Volume 3 and 4 are just as good. This series is so damn good. I get it, it's not for everybody. I've seen some complaints that it's too science-y, and it is, and I'll explain why when we're looking at this. But this is written by Ryan North. Carlos Gomez does issues 18 through 20. Ivan Fiorelli doing issues 21 through 22. Jesus Aburtov and Fer Cifuentes Sujo doing the color artist, or art of the color artist, and Joe Carabagna doing the lettering. And every one of the covers is done by Alex Ross. The beauty of this series is that each and every one of these issues, I have to skip a little bit in this one because this is quite a spoiler what happens, is a standalone comic. There are two-parters sometimes, like the Doctor Doom and the Dinosaur Doom storyline in the Volume 3. There's a two-parter here, and it has to do with the Blood Hunt. But let me just explain what each issue is, give you a quick synopsis. The first issue is about these invisible asteroids that are about to hit Earth. They've happened before. They made the dinosaurs go extinct. So now it's up to Sue and the rest of the team to figure out how to defeat these asteroids when it feels like it's about to overcome them, and how the Force powers have to come together to make it happen. The reason I skipped a few pages is because the beginning of the comic is a huge spoiler for something that we've all been thinking has been going on with a particular character, but don't know it yet. Freaking awesome. Now, by this point, the family has been reunited. The kids are back. The Baxter building's back. But the FF are still broke. They don't have money because New York City has kept their money from them. So you'll see how it comes to play. Oh, I love this story right here where Alicia Masters is a private eye, and it's done in this noir style, where Sue is hiring her to go and find Reed Richards, and there's a twist and turn with that. But my all-time favorite story, I have to say this is probably my favorite Fantastic Four story out of Ryan North's run, and it's hard to pick one. But remember when I said that the FF just, have to make ends meet because they're all living in Arizona in this house with the kids, both families, and Ben and Johnny have to go out and get a job. Now, we've seen that concept before, but there's a beautiful moment in this story that I was like, yes, that's what the Fantastic Four is about. It starts off with them being security guards and getting fired and then getting a job at the same market, the food market. The most unbelievable thing about this entire run, by the way, so far, is this BS scene right here. I ain't seen that many cashiers at a freaking grocery store in a few years. I don't care where you are in Arizona. There's self-checkouts there, I'm sure. That was the most unbelievable thing about this run, Ryan North. Nice try. I'm not buying that. But anyway, both of them get a job at the same grocery store. Both of them are competing to become Employee of the Month, Cashier of the Month. And it becomes this wonderful competition. I don't want to spoil what happens at the end because as I'm saying what the plot is, I'm sure some people are like, Cashier of the Month? They're both cashiers at a market? This isn't the Fantastic Four. But it is. If you read Fantastic Four, you know what the formula of the Fantastic Four is. They were Marvel's first family. This freaking comic book, this series by Ryan North, makes me think they really need to add the title, if they haven't yet, World's Greatest Comic Magazine on the cover again, because it really feels like that. This has been so fun to read. I hate waiting on trade paperback. It almost makes me want to break my oath that I don't really read digital comics unless it's something new that people are like, you gotta read the first issue, and I'm like, okay, I will. Oh, well, looks like I'm waiting 6 more months for a trade paperback. Oh my gosh, it's that good. The next story arc in here is the Blood Hunt crossover. So this is the two-parter that's in here. It's a beautiful moment between Alicia Masters and Reed Richards going to New York, her experiencing art, and him like, I don't get it. That's not science. And I see the complaint online. I see that, even in my comment section, and I get it. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, that the book is too science-y. And there is. It kind of makes me wish I could go back in time to pay more attention to science class. I forgot to mention, there was another story. No, that was in the was that in this one with Rama Tut? Sorry, I reread volume 3 back to back with this one. No, that was in the previous volume. It makes me wish I could go back in time to pay more attention in science class, because as I'm reading this, I'm like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. That sounds good. That sounds about right. And then I'm like, wait, maybe it doesn't. I'm not a scientist, but I love comic book science. If you make me believe it, sure. So the last 2 issues collected in here are a crossover with the Blood Hunt. So the vampires are invading New York City, but they're also invading Arizona, where the family is staying. Reed and Alicia are separated, and then you have the rest of the family fighting off this horde of vampires. Reed refuses to believe that they're vampires, that there's a scientific, logical explanation for them. And Alicia's like, okay, fine. You can explain it through science. Just let's do something about it. And I love that team up. Man, Ryan North gets it. Please don't ever leave this book. And if you do, let Mark Waid come back. I love his run too. Okay, there are covers on the back, but there's also covers in between issues. 112 pages collecting Fantastic Four issues 18 through 22, and the book retails for $15.99. I hope the people that are reading this are enjoying it as much as I have been. And we have reached that part of the video where we check out all of the spines of the books coming out this week, and also a kind reminder to smash that like button, please. If you're enjoying the content that we are putting out on our channel, think about subscribing if you haven't subscribed yet. All right, let's continue with the overviews. Daredevil Modern Era Epic Collection Volume 3. This one is out. And this collects 2002 to 2003, $44.99. And I remember when we announced the cover, I thought, wow, can hardly see that word, out. Could be my eyesight, though. So here we have a continuation of Brian Michael Bendis' era of Daredevil. And look at that, all those different Daredevil, modern era epic collections. And all of it written by Brian Michael Bendis, Alex Malev supplying the artwork for the majority of the book, with Matt Hollingsworth on colors. And then you have Manuel Gutierrez doing the White Tiger fill-in issues. And then you have Terry Dodson coming in for issue number 40. Issue 50 has a lot of 2 pages or 1 page or even sometimes 1 panel of just different stars there. And your lettering is by Richard Starkings and a couple of other people. Now, this era is all done by Brian Michael Bendis, whereas the Omnibus Edition has released Brian Michael Bendis' Daredevil. It did skip out on a couple of stories like by Bob Gale. The modern era epic collections are more complete if you want to go the route of, I need everything of this character, not just Brian Michael Bendis. Going into this, I do have to talk about some spoilers as to what makes this such an interesting read. So, spoilers going into this, just in case. 464 pages, $44.99, collecting issues 32 through 50. The very first story arc in here, because these are separated by different story arcs, is the story called Out. And Out is a story where people have figured out that perhaps Daredevil is really none other than Matt Murdock. They've been trying to figure out who this character of Daredevil is, what's going on with Wilson Fisk after his Fall of the Kingpin storyline, not the original one, but the new one by Bendis. And they have figured out that perhaps blind attorney Matt Murdock is none other than Daredevil. And that knowledge gets out. It gets out into the world. So now Matt has to figure out what to do with the world thinking that he's Daredevil. And this isn't the first time that's happened, right? It's happened in the past. It happened just recently. It's happened in a lot of the creators' runs over the years. And the way he handles it is different in each of the creators' run. I love the way that he handles it in Mark Waid's run. He just starts wearing the shirt that says I'm not, or does it say I'm Daredevil? Something like that. He just owns it. In this, it's a little bit different. Now, the other thing that happens in this story arc, there's a fight with Mr. Hyde, but most of the time, it is just a story about Matt Murdock. There's hardly any Daredevil in here. Black Widow makes her return. He's having dinner with Vanessa. Elektra makes a return through here, but is it really Elektra making a return? And then the next story arc is about him defending the White Tiger. This is the one that's done by Gutierrez. And I do want to point out that I do think it was, let me find it, issue number 39. This is the one that had a misprint in the Omnibus edition. So here, there is no misprint. It's actually printed the way it was supposed to be. In the Omnibus edition, the last printing and this new printing, it shifted the panels over. The word bubbles are still the same, but the panels have been shifted over. But it's okay in this particular collection. So that is the trial of White Tiger, and what exactly he is found, not guilty of, but why are they putting him on trial? Well, you can find out for yourself. The next story arc introduces us to a new character who will play a huge part in this run. And that is none other than this young lady right here. And elements of that, I think, were borrowed for the Daredevil movie, the one with Ben Affleck, right? I think it's was borrowed from, or at least I seem to remember that. I'm not a fan of that movie, so I seem to remember that maybe that parts of him meeting Mila are in that particular. I can't remember if it was that or another character. It's the Elektra and Daredevil meeting in the park. But if you remember, let me know in the comments. But I always thought it was the Mila meeting in the park. But we also have the return of the Owl here. So he does have a new love interest. And he really, like, it really hits him hard. It's almost like love at first sight. I know what I just said. But it feels like that for both of them. Both of them just become infatuated with each other. And she becomes a huge part of this run of Daredevil. I mean, she stays through the whole thing after her first appearance. We do have the return of Luke Cage, and we have some other villains. Not just the Owl, but you also get characters like Typhoid Mary coming back. Now, Typhoid Mary is a little bit different in here, but so is Bendis' take on Bullseye. And with Bullseye and Typhoid Mary coming back, the Kingpin can't be that far behind, right? The Kingpin just falls just to rise back up. And that's what leads into this huge fight that is drawn by the different creators over the years right here. This is, yeah. So you have like some Gene Colan in here. And that's really cool that they did this. Like some of them are just one panel fights in John Romita Sr. And then the back of the book collecting, modern era epic collections don't have a ton of extras. But this one seems to have, I've seen some modern era epic collections that just have like one or two extras and that's it. But this one has a little behind the scene process of the art, the script, the layouts to finish pages and covers, deleted scenes, the guest artist spotlight back here. Very freaking cool that they did that. And there's David Mack. So I had forgotten how different this run was. I reread this in omnibus format, and I remember reading it for the first time and being a little too critical of it, like, oh, that's not the way that Typhoid Mary would act. That's not really Bullseye. But reading it like this, oh my gosh, it was a pretty badass story from out all the way to the fight against the Kingpin. It's one continuing story, and I don't know about anybody else, but I found the courtroom scenes to be just as intriguing as the fights when he's Daredevil, fighting the Owl. I really like the way that, I think this is where Bendis really shined, was, some of these courtroom scenes with the talking heads, of course, but it makes sense for a story like this when you have a strong case against the hero. If you've never read this and you've been waiting for a collection like this absolutely gets my seal of approval. And keep in mind, I just said Ryan North's FF goes to the top of the list. And keep in mind, I'm also going to be talking about Tomb of Dracula here in a second, and those stories are amazing. But this is the arc that made me appreciate Bendis' run on Daredevil, the Out storyline. Because for such a silly storyline that had been done in the past, people finding out exactly that Daredevil is Matt Murdock, he makes it work because he makes it different. And I like the way that he handles it. So this is Daredevil Out. This book, again, has 464 pages and retails for $44.99. Marvel Masterworks, The Tomb of Dracula, Volume 4. We've been getting one a year every time in October, I think. There might have been a delay where one of them was in November, but this is the latest one. And here's the title page. This is, of course, a hardcover with a dust jacket, like all the other Masterworks. And your credits right here. Mark Wolfman, Gene Colan taking top billing, of course. David Anthony Kraft, Tony Isabella, Don Heck, Virgil Redondo, and John Byrne. This is actually the first John Byrne Marvel comic that was published. And your table of contents right here, you do get an introduction by Glenn Greenberg, who I do believe he's written. I haven't read the introduction yet. Dang, I need to go back and do that because I love introductions. But he did write Dracula in the 90s, if I'm not mistaken. He's written Spider-Man. And we kick it off with this issue right here, Tomb of Dracula 31. So this collects Tomb of Dracula 31 through 40, giant size Dracula 4 through 5, and then material from Vampire Tales 8 and 9 and Marvel Previews 3 and 8. The book has 392 pages and retails for $75. So we do see the return of these characters like Quincy Harker through here. And it's about these characters trying to fight off against Dracula, of course. It's this ongoing fight. We see Frank Drake appear through these pages, and we do eventually see the return of Blade. Because even though this is one of those books that's about a villain like Dracula, what Marv Wolfman did was make it more about the characters, which is weird to say the antagonist of the stories. And this one is really good because this one right here, you get to find out the backstory of the character of Quincy. So Quincy Harker, he's in a wheelchair, but in here you find out the history between him and Dracula and what possibly put him in that wheelchair. And we do get some new characters through here that kind of adds something new to the element of Dracula. One of them is Harold. Oh gosh, I think his name is Harold Harold H. Harold, maybe. And the other one is Aurora. I think it's Robinson. I could be wrong. But both of them play a big part in this story when they make an appearance. Now, we do see Brother Voodoo and what do they call them? The Zombie Knights? I think they don't call them zombies because of the comics code. And it was wrong to talk about zombies. But it is Brother Voodoo against the Army of Darkness here. And it all features the character of, again, Dracula against the opposing forces. And these forces are building. I mean, eventually we're going to see more and more characters. And eventually we're going to see something big happen in the comic that, even though, sure, they're going to undo it. But it's just, they actually killed Dracula. Maybe for an issue. This is the character of Juno, that's his name, who works for Dr. Sun. And Dr. Sun is one of these characters that Marv Wolfman had been building up to kind of make him the big baddie in the book to go up against Dracula. Somebody that can actually take out Dracula. And eventually he does take out Dracula, and you can see how he ends up returning through these very pages here. There is a story in here where Harold has an interview with a vampire that is way ahead of its time. It was before Anne Rice's interview with a vampire, I believe. I don't know. I know the book, not the movie. The book was written in the late 70s, so I want to say it was before then. But I could be wrong. Let me know in the comments down below. I thought that was so unique that, hey, we have like an interview with a vampire. And it's done in that kind of style. I really like this story right here. This is the character, Beverly Carpenter, that ends up falling in love with him and takes him back home. And there's all these horrible things that are happening to her family. And Dracula kind of helps out, which is weird to see Dracula have like this human side from time to time. I love the Zeppelin in this particular story. And in this Giant Size 5 is where you get to see John Byrne's first published Marvel comic. Wow. Yeah. And then eventually what you get is the story of Blade told through the different comic books like Vampire Tales. And then when it was canceled, it went into the Marvel previews. And then it went into, to finish out the arc, it went into the final, or issue 8 of Marvel previews. So it's all collected in here, drawn by different artists. And that is one of the covers they use for the Blade Omnibus right there. But this is all following the story of Blade fighting against the army of the undead. And I love the fact that they don't really feature the character of Dracula through here. It's mainly just focusing on Blade. And Blade is one of those characters that, as popular as he didn't really have his ongoing series, right? It wasn't until the 90s that he got some. Okay, let's look at the extras in the back, like the Mighty Marvel calendar for 1975. And convention right there, Tomb and Dracula plot, the original pages or the covers here. And some of the stuff had to be changed when the editor stepped in. I wonder if they still do that. Like, hey, you need to change that cover. I think the last time it happened, it was because of the super sexy Manara cover. And then the bio on the creators. Now, one of the things I want to do is, in case people are like, wait, I already have this stuff, and I'm sure it'll be collected in some other format, like maybe the Epic collections, because they've had releases of the Tomb of Dracula complete collections in the past. But I want to talk about the restoration. This has been released in omnibus format, but this is newly restored artwork. And what they're doing with this is going here. Let's actually move the complete collection over here and touching up each of the panels with not just the colors, but the inks, most of the time what they use are the like photos, right? They don't really use original art because that would be crazy to do that. I think the Taschen stuff, the Taschen big books, they use original artwork to restore the stuff, but you can see the difference between the complete collection. This is the scans that they use for the omnibus. So hopefully when the omnis are reprinted one day, they will use the scans that they did for the restoration here in the Masterworks. I would assume that they do. Oh, that would be so awesome. It would make me feel better about selling those books so long ago. Colors are a little bit different, of course. This is truer to the source material, but because they're using glossy paper stock, they're going to have to look different anyway. But just wanted to showcase exactly how the colors look compared to the complete collection and the way they will look. I don't have my omnis anymore because, as I said, I ended up selling them years ago. So I was like, well, I'm never going to find two. And then I did find two after I sold 1 and 3. I was an idiot. But, oh well. I'm sure they'll be reprinted one day. Yeah, and you can tell just the minor differences in the colors, but it's mainly about those fine lines and the restoration. All right, but that's it. 392 pages, $75. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing any of these collected editions, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content and page count of each of these books. Let me know in the comments down below which ones you're collecting in what format. Are you waiting for an omnibus reprint of Tomb of Dracula? But my gosh, the restoration on this masterwork is so beautiful. Or are you going to wait for a what if modern era epic collection, oops, or yeah, that would work, or a omnibus, but there isn't an epic collection of what if yet, maybe one day. Are you going to wait for Ryan North's Fantastic Four to be collected in oversized format? Because let me tell you, it's amazing. Oh my gosh. Yeah, this was a hard week to pick the one that stood out, but I had to go with Daredevil by Bendis. Like, rereading it really brought back those memories, and I can see why people regard it as, their favorite Daredevil run. Any questions, leave them down below. Don't forget to smash that like button. Everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.